All right, let's talk some Minnesota Vikings for a second. I find them to be one of the more interesting teams heading into this offseason. They have several moving parts, here. Obviously, I think one key way that they get better right away is a new coaching staff. I just think that the Mike Zimmer coaching staff, it was outdated, and I think getting a new head coach, again, who knows what's going to be behind door number 2, right? We don't know, but there's reason to like O'Connell, so there's hope there and at least optimism, and so that's a start. And let's talk about the actual talent now, because at the end of the day, that's what wins football games is talent. So what are you going to do with this talent, and how can maybe you take that next step forward? Well, first, let's look at who they're losing in free agency and how much cap space they have. So these are some of their key free agents. Also, you see at the top of the screen, that's how much cap space they have. So negative $16 million. So you are already over the salary cap. And then for the key free agents, this isn't all of them, but the key ones, also the number you see next to them, that's PFF's guess for how many dollars per year they should get on their next contract. So if Minnesota wanted to sign all 4 of these guys, they would need $19 million to do so, meaning they'd have to clear about $35 million to make that happen, which you can do. That's not that difficult to do, actually. In fact, teams, that's actually kind of almost like right at the cap. So if they wanted to re-sign everybody, like, they could. And by right at the cap, I mean like right at the actual cap, because the salary cap is more of a suggestion than a rule. It's kind of an accountant tool more than it is an actual limit on how much you can spend. 30 teams last year spent over the salary cap. The average team does spend around $20-30 million over the salary cap. So Vikings spending $35 million over the cap, that's well within normal range. As for the 4 guys who are free agents, so you got some veterans, right? You have Anthony Barr, who's good. So it's like, do you want to just let him walk? I don't know if you do. You probably would like to keep him if you could. He's not maybe necessarily the superstar that we've seen him in seasons past, but he can still certainly play at a solid level. And like someone like Patrick Peterson, another guy who not the star he was back younger in his career. He is 32 now. For corners, they don't last as long as they used to, right? And especially someone who had the great speed he had. Once that kind of starts to go, kind of more of a zone corner now at this point in his career, but still a solid one. So if you do lose these guys, you have to replace them with somebody. So that's kind of, you got to get bodies in the room. Also, someone like Sheldon Richardson, solid interior defensive lineman, who I would think that you'd probably want to keep. $3 million isn't a huge price tag to keep him. You could let him walk. It's not like you need him, but he is definitely someone who, if you lose, you probably want to make sure you replace with at least like a solid, player in his spot. You also have Xavier Woods, who, solid player, and $5 million isn't like a ton to pay a player. Although again, safeties don't get the contract that other guys do. You do always, Woods with Harrison Smith kind of as a 1-2 combo is obviously really good. Harrison Smith is a fantastic safety still at this point in his career, even though he's 33. So getting a good, 1B to pair with Harrison Smith's 1A ability, that might be what they do. Again, if you lose Woods, you do have to replace him with somebody, so that's just what makes things interesting. Going over here now, so these are the players they could cut, and I put Kirk Cousins on here because you don't get any money for cutting him, but if you trade him, you save $35 million. There have been speculation of, could we see, similar to the Matt Stafford trade, could we see the Vikings do something like that? Now, most people are going to say, well, the Lions certainly didn't win that trade, but in a way, they kind of did. They got 2 first-round picks for a player who didn't want to be there anymore, and now they can rebuild easier, whereas they were kind of stuck in mediocrity with Matt Stafford, and then obviously the Rams won by winning a Super Bowl. So maybe you'll even get a better deal than the Rams got. As in, you'll get you could potentially get even more picks. Although again, getting 2 first-round picks would that feels pretty high. But again, people need a good quarterback. So could you see a team like Carolina be desperate for a quarterback position? If one of these teams can't get any of the big name guys, maybe that's a move you can make, or maybe just hang on to Kirk Cousins because he played really good last year. So those are 2 options. It's an option on the table. I'm not saying they should do it for any of these guys. I'm not saying they should cut any of them. I'm just saying, these are players they could cut. These are guys that you at least bring up in the meeting, right? You also have Danielle Hunter, who you could save $15 million, but the issue with doing that is you lose a great player in doing so. So yeah, you're saving the money, but you're losing a really good player. So I don't know if you want to do that, but again, if they decide they want to clear up cap space and save some money and spend that somewhere else, like, you could make that decision if you choose. But he did get hurt last year, so that's kind of maybe the logic behind it would be because of that. But as long as you believe that Hunter could still, be a great player as we've seen him in past years, and why you gave him that contract, you almost certainly keep him. I don't think he's going anywhere, but figured I'd put it on the list. Michael Pierce, another guy who's, been a good player. I don't know if you want to just, move to get off of him, but if you need the money desperately, you could try to do that to save $7 million. But again, I don't know if you do that. CJ Ham is interesting because I just don't know how much that we're going to see a fullback get used in this new offense. So that's kind of why I put that there. I don't know. I feel like, just kind of thinking about it, I feel like there's a chance that we could see a fullback get used a decent amount. But at the same time, I don't know. And maybe you say, hey, CJ Ham's a pretty good fullback, we'll keep him. Or maybe you sit here and say, like, man, we don't really need a fullback, so we'll save the $2 million and get a different player, someone who we might use more. So that's kind of, an interesting thing. Who knows how that'll work. We'll see if he stays or goes. And also, Amon Watts, he's been a solid interior defensive lineman for them. I don't see him going anywhere. But again, for his cap hit, $3 million, I don't know why you moved to get rid of him. He was a 6th-round pick a couple years ago. You probably just keep him. But if you desperately need to save a couple million, he might be a casualty. Finally, going over here, so this is where PFF graded each one of their positional categories last year. Not a lot of great stuff, but there was, the two most important positions in football were really good. Passing and receiving were both top 5 according to PFF. Now, we've seen a big sample size from Cousins. And are we going to sit here and say Kirk Cousins is, a legitimate fringe top 5 quarterback? I don't know. But did he play like a legitimate fringe top 5 quarterback last year? I think so. Like, PFF graded him as the 6th best, and he was really good last year. Like, he ran that offense as well as he could have. Now, part of it might have been, like, he wasn't asked to do as much as maybe you think he should have been asked to do. It was kind of very, like, a run-first offense at times, which I don't know why you made that decision. Especially when you look at kind of the rest of this team, and really the passing attack was what was good with the Vikings. The rest of the team, was either average or below average. The offensive line, below average. Not abysmal, but below average. You have the running game, which was not what you kind of expected going into this season. Again, according to PFF grades, they weren't as crazy about Dalvin Cook as I think some people were. And quite frankly, I do feel like we've seen better. Dalvin Cook still had his flashes this year, but it wasn't quite what we've seen him do in past years. I don't think that's crazy to say. And of course, with Cook, the question always is, are you going to stay healthy? And just, building around a halfback is rarely a good strategy anyways. You also have the run defense, which was below average. The pass rush, which was average. Maybe, hey, just getting Hunter on the field for 1,000 snaps would change that, which it would. And then the coverage, which was slightly below average. And again, you kind of wonder, like, okay, well, what can you do? Cameron Dantzler has established himself as a good corner. He was drafted late, and he's, listen, does he still have did he have a slow 40 time? Sure. Is that a little bit concerning on, like, guys who can run deep routes? Sure. But at the same time, he's a great zone corner. When you give him that extra little space, he does really well there. So I think it might be a little bit scheme specific. That's my speculation. I haven't seen him too much in man in this, in the NFL, so I could be wrong about that. But he's still played very well when he's been doing that. But then, again, like Patrick Peterson, where is he at? Are we going to keep him? I don't know. And if you don't, well, then who's your next corner? Are we going with Mackenzie Alexander as, the next guy? You probably need to add another body to be a starter, quite frankly. And maybe that's what you do through the draft, but drafting corner is always kind of a question mark. So that's something that they'll have to improve upon, I think, would be the cornerback position. I like Dantzler, but, maybe just add another guy that could make this team a lot better, I think. So, yeah, I think for the Vikings, there's two things really I feel about with the Vikings. Is that, one, you have some really good pieces. And, like, Cousins gets all the criticism. I get it. Cousins has played well, and I think people kind of bring up part of why it's hard to get the talent around him is because he does have a huge contract. He's due $45 million next year, which is why, one of the strengths of this team, I put in the players you could look to get rid of category because of that contract. That's kind of the whole thing about Cousins. It's never been that he's a bad quarterback, and he was really good this year. It's more so just about the contract itself. If it's me, I probably keep I think I say, listen, I got Justin Jefferson, I got Adam Thielen, I got how Cousins played last year. I'm not going to try to mess with that. That's what made the Vikings, and I think a playoff caliber team, even though they didn't make the playoffs. I put that more on coaching than on, the talent. So I think they were a playoff caliber team. So what I do is I try to build the rest of the stuff around them and get them to that postseason and maybe even be a little bit, not just a playoff team, but a good playoff team. That's the hope at the end of the day, is to make, win the Super Bowl. And especially I find it fascinating the way teams might start to attack other situations this year. What I mean is, like, typically your mindset is, okay, we have to win like 13 games, go 13-3 if we're going to win a Super Bowl, because, we have to get at least one of the two byes to really have like a great chance. Okay, maybe we'll squeak in as a 6 seed and find a way, but reality is you typically needed to be a 1 or 2 seed to win the Super Bowl. Well, since we've gotten rid of that 2 seed getting a bye, we've seen a 5 seed and a 4 seed make the Super Bowl. In fact, out of the 4 teams we've seen make the Super Bowl, very small sample size for sure, only one seed made the Super Bowl. The rest was, 2 4 seeds and a 5 seed. So the 2 4 seeds being last year, this past Super Bowl, the Rams and Bengals, and then the Buccaneers the year before. So maybe just being like a good team like that, that'll give you a better chance of winning the Super Bowl than it might have previous years. So being like a 4 seed caliber team, that's not the worst place to be. And I think they have a chance to do that. Again, the question is, do they really have the chance to, in 1 year, turn it around and be a 1 seed? They're going to need to do a lot really well. They're going to need to really find guys that they don't have to spend money and resources to get that play well, which crazier things have happened. So it's interesting stuff. But yeah, that's where I think they are. Where do you guys think they are? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the Vikings? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.